Officers and everyone else, remember, if I've got a gun in this hand, when I grab something in this hand, there's a real likelihood I'm going to make that gun go off unintentionally. Hi everybody, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Carrillo.
And I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Sacramento, California.
MagTech is the only freedom seed I use on the range. I personally have over 100,000 rounds downrange of MagTech, and it's unbelievably reliable, very accurate, and a great value. Pick some up for your next range trip wherever you shop for range supplies.
Officers drove by a guy in a sloppy jalopy who they saw immediately jump out of the car, park it, and then run away from it. And so they are like, that's weird. They're gonna go and investigate that and then try to find him because they see this car with all the problems in it. They're gonna try to contact him. The car has expired tags and have been revoked tags. So they gotta find out who this guy is.
Niners jersey on. Hi. Where'd the guy go that just parked this? I watched him walk out over here. I just walked out. Niners jersey on. Nothing. Nobody got nothing.
I was in my hair. I was inside.
Okay, no big deal. There we go. You guys know where the guy went that had the Niners jersey on that had that car?
Colorado State. That car? No, I don't.
He walked right past you.
Yeah, walked right through.
Oh, he walked right past you. He was over here. I watched him get out of the car and go this way.
Oh, I didn't see him.
Okay. We're gonna tow it. That's why. So if he wants his car back, you better come out and get it. Nobody knows where he went. Surprising. Oops.
I've sped this part up for the sake of time. He just goes and searches a little bit more. The guy in the Winnebago gave him permission to go inside of the Winnebago and look in there. He looks in, he's not in there. He's gonna continue to look around for the guy, eventually think that he's on top of the Winnebago. He's gonna be right. Let's listen in and see how this all finishes.
2, 3. I got a dude hiding on top of an RV that just jumped out of this car. I want to contact him. All right, brother man, you're at gunpoint. I need you to come down. Yo, you're on gunpoint. Get down now. All right?
Get up. Get him down.
Don't put your hands in your pockets. Just come down. Fuck. 23. Yeah, we're good? All right? I got it. Hey, you're good. You're good. Hey, let me see. Stop. You're all right. 23. Shot fired.
Hey, call my baby mom. Get my phone. The password.
That went that way.
All right.
Good.
Fuck. Ah!
Stop.
Fuck. Ah! Ah! You fucking shot me in my hand.
You all right, dude?
Oh yeah. Fucking A.
You still awake? 23 subject is awake, talking, breathing.
Copy, awake and talking and breathing.
You all right? Keep talking. What's your name? Brother, talk to me, okay? What's your name, boss?
What's your name? Looking at that black wallet right there.
Hey, check his vitals, all right? Keep talking, brother, okay? We're gonna get you checked out.
You go with him for a second?
No.
You go with him for a second?
No.
Okay, well then go get my med bag.
Our officer who fired the rounds is then gonna go get the med kit, bring it back. They did give him first aid. He did live through this. He had a no bail warrant for felon in possession of a firearm, but he did not have any weapons on him whatsoever when he was shot. We're gonna talk about that in the lessons. He did go to jail for the warrant and all that, and for fleeing a police officer and all that stuff too. You know, this one, Mike, begins with what we call reasonable articulable suspicion that some crime is afoot here. And they were right. This car is a mess and all those things. And our guy ended up having a no bail warrant for felon in possession. And I really think that this cop was pretty cool and pretty chill in the beginning of this, just looking for the guy. And, you know, we recognize Sacramento, much of California has these kind of homeless encampments, people living on the roadside now, which is just terrible in my opinion because it says what people are doing. But I do think that he was pretty chill and pretty cool here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, this was kind of my approach when I was still active in law enforcement was, you know, just friendly, casual. You know, there's no need to be officious or rude or curt or terse with anyone on the street. I think everything he did up until that last thing that we just saw was perfectly fine. The only thing I objected to really before that was him getting up on the grill of the cab. We'll talk about that in a second. I think his approach is fantastic. No need to get all worked up. No need to start ordering people around. You draw more bees with honey than vinegar. Although this crowd, they're not going to cooperate with the police. I could have told you that before you ever talked to any of them. They're all going to be like, yeah, I don't know, didn't see anything, don't know anything. That's pretty standard, unfortunately, in places like this. But it's what you deal with, so you got to be prepared for that.
Yeah, and how do we know these guys aren't ATF agents? The dog lived. That's as simple as that. That's a joke. Everyone, take it for what it is. Now, okay, Mike, you talk about he decides to get up on the bumper of this big rig here, which is unorthodox to say the least, but he's trying to get some eyeballs on this guy. And then I want to talk just briefly about the officer drawing a gun in this particular instance. Given everything that's going on here, remember, an officer can draw a pistol when they have a reasonable suspicion that they're going to need it because they very well might face an armed suspect. And given later we understand that this guy was a guy with a warrant for, you know, a felon in possession of a firearm, winner, winner, chicken dinner, he did have that. But of course, this isn't something that private citizens would look at very often. We don't do this kind of stuff. Mission drives tactics, techniques, and procedures. So I don't have a problem with him having a gun in his hand. I do think him jumping up on the bumper was a little unorthodox, but I'll leave that to you, Mike, because you got all the law enforcement experience.
Yeah, I would dissuade any of my agents that I train to do something like this. Here's why. You're going to put yourself in a really unstable platform that's a smooth, rounded front sort of push bumper on this semi-truck. It's not a very good platform, so I don't like the idea of having a gun out and in your hand at this moment, only because if you do slip and fall, bad things can happen. Unfortunately, bad things still happen, but you understand what I'm getting at here. I think the move, he already knew the guy was up there. You can see his feet. This is almost comical before all the bad stuff happens later, like, okay, the bad guy's going to close his eyes, cover his eyes, and pretend like if I don't see you, you don't see me. I've had that happen more than once. I would have rather them just get on the front and the rear corner of this RV and just like, look, dude, we can do this all day. Have your gun out for sure, because you don't know what this guy's capable of. He could have a gun of his own. But just be like, hey, come on down. And then try to talk the guy down off of the thing, call for more units and handle it that way. So yeah, to your point, John, I think if you wanted to hop up there and just get a visual like real quick and just to confirm it's the guy, sure, that's fine. But leave your gun in the holster.
And maybe your other officer, right? So if you've got a lethal cover officer, okay, fine. And then you need a hands officer too, or somebody maybe on less lethal as well. So talking that through ahead of time, the guy was kind of, corralled up there. It's not like, he's going to run off of that without you being able to see it. So maybe having that talk ahead of time, just a little bit of pre-event planning to understand who's the hands officer and who is the lethal cover officer. Because if you're lethal cover, then you got to recognize what your job is. And I think that had they done that, Mike, then the problems that are about to show up may not have happened.
Yeah, concur 100%. So many times we watch these videos and I think folks think that we're just here Monday morning quarterbacking. I suppose there's something to that, but the point of these videos is not to just criticize the officers that we're viewing here in these videos. The purpose is to help other officers and deputies and agents who are watching these in training to get a mental rep. And I think this is a really important mental rep for them to get. They could find themselves in a very similar position. I've been in similar positions where I had someone climb up on top of an RV or on top of a moving van or whatever. It's happened a number of times, or get in some wacky position as we're doing an arrest warrant on a house to try to secrete themselves in some little cubbyhole somewhere. So these are important mental reps. So I want you, if you're watching this, to remember, if you're going to be in an unstable, weird platform like that, maybe don't take your gun out. Maybe, as John said, have another officer as lethal cover as you get eyes on real quick. Just verify he's up there. I'm not sure you had to climb up to be sure of that, but whatever. Now you're sure, hop down and handle it that way. I have to admit, I have to confess, as a former cop, I do feel for this officer because I don't think he ever intended to do anything. The stuff that ended up happening, I think, was in fact, negligent, but accidental and not intentional. And he realizes before this video is over that he's in a lot of hot water, and I feel for him in that way.
Yeah, and recognize that this is one of those times where I've got him kind of contained, so I have a minute, right? So I don't have to compress my discretionary time here. I can take my time knowing where he's at. And when you compress your discretionary time is when you address him, when you point a gun at him, then that starts the clock ticking, right? So you've compressed your discretionary time. So when you have that discretionary time, it's okay to slow your roll a little bit. It's okay to take a moment and make a good plan. So then that way you've conversed with your partner, you know what's up. Okay, fine. Maybe we're just going to stand here and wait a minute until we get a couple more cops around here, and then we can, surround and call this guy out and figure out what's going on. Now he runs off, and here's where the problems start showing up, because he's going to jump over to the side of our officer who has a gun in his hand. The officer's going to go and chase him. And I've stopped it here with he's chasing this guy, and he's going to go hands-on with him with the gun in his hand. And this is where, and we've seen this on the channel more times than I care to admit, Mike, that when you do this, you get this inner limb interaction problem. And that inner limb interaction is a significant mistake, because what happens is that when you grab with that support hand on the guy, you're going to grip with your dominant hand. And if that is a high likelihood of a negligent discharge. So the answer here is, before you ever go hands-on with somebody, you must holster your pistol. You must. And if you have a pistol in your hand, you have to understand you cannot go hands-on with somebody. And failure to understand that caused this unintentional discharge and a negligent injury.
Yeah, I think other people call it sympathetic squeeze, right? So the idea being, if you've got this hand free and you need this hand for something to grasp, to grab something, to grab your suspect, for example, or the side of a ladder or a windowsill as you're climbing in, if you do that grip, you will get this sort of unintentional squeezing of your other hand. And if there's a gun in that other hand, especially if your finger is not high in register, if your finger's on the trigger, you're likely to have a negligent, unintentional, accidental, call it what you will, discharge. I've seen this happen in the field with someone. I use the example of climbing over a windowsill, where their gun is out because they're so concerned about having that out in case there's a bad guy on the other side of what they're doing. I understand that 100%, but you got to understand that you need to have that gun. Look, this is a no-look holster. I promise you, this officer has a big old Safariland SLS holster or ALS holster. It's a big open bucket. Holstering up, he could have done it right here just before he went hands-on. If you need to practice your holstering as a law enforcement officer, you got to practice your holstering just as much as you practice your gun presentation and your unholstering. It's that important to get that sort of muscle memory down to where you can even do a just quick peek, just look real quick, holster up, and then jump on the guy and get to work. Unfortunately, that's not what happened here.
And that's literally the only time I ever recommend a no-look holster. For private citizens, specifically if you're carrying, concealed, that gun is very close to your body and the holster is not nearly as big. So I don't ever recommend that for private citizens. For an officer on duty with a big offset holster with, usually here they're carrying Safariland SLS holsters or the equivalent. That is a giant 5-gallon bucket for you to throw that gun into. And yes, an officer should be able to holster that pistol in an emergency like this without looking. And being able to do that and safely put the gun in the bucket in a half a second. So then that way you can go hands-on, because otherwise what happens is what happens here. And I want to stop to show you one of the big things. Look at the far left here, and you can see the officer's hand gripping onto his jersey. On the right hand, you can see the gun in his right hand. And that is exactly what happened here, is that he didn't intend to shoot this guy. I will guarantee you. Now, I'm not privy to any of the internal affairs investigation here, Mike. I'm not privy to any of what the officer said, but I'm telling you what was caught on video here. This was an accidental, negligent discharge of the firearm. He grazed him in the head, and the officer's actions afterwards. He doesn't want to be left alone with the guy. He's kind of almost in a state of shock, show that. And why did it happen? It happened because of that, whether you want to call it a sympathetic squeeze or a sympathetic inner limb interaction, this nerdy speak, whatever, that can happen. But because we know it happens, then we can't just dismiss it. We can't just say, oh, it's okay because humans do that. No, we have to have the policies and the training in place that it doesn't happen to us, and it doesn't happen to us by preventing it by not going hands-on with somebody with a gun in our hand.
Yep. And if you are a trainer watching this, next time you guys are going to go out to the range and do your advanced firearm training exercises, that is anything over and above your qualification, it might behoove you to set up some scenarios where there's a brief foot pursuit and your officer, agent, deputy has his or her gun in their hand, and you're going to grade them on when they holster up, right before they go hands on. This is something we can start training. I don't think we ever, other than when it came up sort of accidentally in a training scenario, we never really purposefully trained this sort of thing. I think it's something we should address in training to get this sort of behavior ingrained in people's heads that, yeah, before you go hands on, but I say before you even start running, I don't even like running with a gun in your hand for this exact same reason. I think this is something we can train at a little harder, a little more deliberately, be more intentional about teaching our law enforcement officers, hey, it's time to put the gun away, free your hands up to do what you got to do to bring the person into custody.
Well, and quite frankly, this could, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, this could lead to aggravated assault charges against the officer. This could, I mean, it wasn't intentional. He didn't intend to do that harm to him. So if he says, oh no, the guy, I needed to shoot him, well, what's your objective reasonable evidence that he was a deadly threat? I think you're gonna have a very hard time articulating that. And otherwise, it was a negligent discharge of a firearm, which is still aggravated assault. You negligently or recklessly caused a significant bodily injury to somebody else, and you might get charged with that. And I don't want that to happen to you. So we need to do better than that. I think finally as well, the shock that officer was under, his partner there needed to kind of take some things over. I think he did a pretty good job of that. Eventually, let's get the guy into custody. Let's get him searched. And then, hey, we need med bag here. I do think that they maybe delayed a little longer than they needed to in order to get him some medical care here. I also, I don't love running back to the car. This is why I suggest officers have an individual first aid kit on their person in addition to the one in the car. So in that way you can render some immediate aid. Thankfully, the guy's life wasn't at risk here. This was a non-life threatening injury, and I'm grateful for that. So I think that, that medical care is an important part because once they have him in custody, they are responsible to take care of him, Mike.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest point that John just made, the most important point, obviously, other than our earlier point about holstering up before you go hands on, is exactly that. Having an IFAC on you in 2024 as a law enforcement officer is no longer optional. It's no longer okay to say, oh, the department didn't give me one, or it's in my trunk or whatever. This is a situation where you're already in a lot of hot water for what just happened. The least you could do for yourself is to have that IFAC on you so that you can begin to render assistance immediately to this person in the event that this was worse than it was. Thank God, in the end, it wasn't worse than it was. Thank God this suspect was only injured and not killed. Listen, to my cops watching this, I can't stress this enough. Regardless of the level of training you're getting for your agency, if it's insufficient, if you're saying to yourself watching this, man, that could have been me. That seems like something that could have happened to me last Tuesday on that foot pursuit. You need to pay close attention. Get the training that you need outside of your department if you have to. Holster up before you go hands on. Holster up before you run. Have an IFAC on your person. We don't make these videos to come down hard on cops. Look, we're trying to help law enforcement in the United States and other places to get better. So do me a favor, take these lessons to heart so that you don't end up in a position like this and you can cover your ass.